About a year and a half since our young people and some of our parishioners as chaperones were at World Youth Day. And I know we've shared various stories and many of you followed along, but I'd like to talk about one particular experience from our World Youth Day trip. When we were in Poland, we were there for about 5 days in Poland. It wasn't World Youth Day, it was World Youth 5 days. So it was a little confusing. But every morning, for 4 days in a row, our group joined about 20,000 other English-speaking Catholics at a sports arena, very much like Bankers Life Fieldhouse where the Pacers play. But this arena was actually nicer and sat a thousand more people than Bankers Life. So it sat about 20,000 people, and it was pretty well full for our World Youth Day morning gatherings. And we'd stay there for 3 hours or so. We'd have Mass and a lunch and speakers. And it was all the best speakers in the English-speaking world were there. Right? We heard Chris Stefanik. He was our MC. And Jason Everett, if some of you have seen their videos on formed.org that we have for our parish. We had Mass one day with Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines, but who is an English-speaking cardinal. The next day we had Mass with Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York, two men who are thought to be, in both the last one and whenever there's another one, in the running or potential future popes. Right? We had amazing people who were awesome at speaking and conveying the truth. But I want to share with you, over those 4 days, the person who came in and spoke with the most authority. There was a Polish nun who spoke somewhat, you could say maybe broken English. Pretty good English, about 80% of it was good. And you knew what she was saying. And she could communicate, but you could tell it was a struggle for her. But she literally, Chris Stefanik, Cardinal Dolan, Cardinal Tagle, they were very engaging, waving their hands around like this, all those kind of things, telling stories, drawing people in, making people laugh. It was all great, awesome stuff for our young people and for me and for everyone else. This Polish nun got up there, and for 40 minutes, you could have heard a pin drop in that stadium. 20,000 people. And she didn't tell one story. There was no, hey everybody, how's it doing? Hey, let me tell you a joke. She was just a fire hose of truth. About Jesus Christ, about how she loved Jesus, about how Jesus loved us, about divine mercy, which she was speaking about, the divine mercy devotion, which started at her convent. The reason I share that is because we hear about authority in the gospel today in two different places. It says Jesus came in speaking with authority. Right? That he came in speaking with authority. And then at the end of the gospel, it says everyone's amazed by the authority that he speaks with, this new speaking that Christ brings. When you look at the word authority, it means, one of the words, it means exactly what it sounds like. It comes from the same word as author. Right? Authority or author, or when you break it down a little bit more, the Latin means to bring to life, to give life. Right? The author. Christ does not come into the synagogue speaking with authority in the way that we might think of authority. He doesn't do it as a person who comes in with some great physical display of force. He doesn't say, I am all powerful. There's no smoke. There's no flames. There's no anything along those lines. He doesn't say, I'm Caesar. I am the great general. Right? He doesn't do that. He doesn't come in. It's not about power. Right? As so many postmodern philosophers, Friedrich Nietzsche and other people would say that all authority really is derived from power. Christ does not come in to the synagogue, and that's not what strikes people about Christ's authority. He speaks with real authority, not the type of authority that we typically think of when what we mean is power in the worldly sense. Right? Christ doesn't come in with the bluster and all of the things that we see in our media so often today, in our culture. People that, demand authority, that draw attention to themselves. Look how awesome I am. Respect my authority. Worship me. Buy my stuff. All of these kinds of things that are out there, that is not the authority that Christ speaks with. Right? That is not the authority that Polish nun spoke with either. And she had the most authority of any person that I heard, even more than Pope Francis. She had authority that you could sense in the room for 45 straight minutes when everyone listened to her speak. Right? That's the type of authority that Christ comes with. Right? He comes as the author. It's like J.R.R. Tolkien himself visiting the story of The Lord of the Rings, or J.K. Rowling dropping in to the story of Harry Potter. The authority that Christ speaks with is the authority of the author. Right? He doesn't have to say, hey, worship me, or look how powerful I am. He says, I wrote this. Right? That's the authority that Christ speaks with. He is the author. He brings to life things. Right? And the demons recognize that. Right? The demons recognize, oh, here's Christ. Have you come to destroy us? That's so often how people view Christ. And that's, I think, the challenge. One of the challenges for us. When we hear Christ has this authority, because we're growing up and coming up in this culture that sees it as power, we're afraid of Christ. We too cry out like the demons a lot of times when we see Christ, or we encounter Christ, or we're seeking to, should I draw closer to Christ? We look at Christ like the demons do, and we say, have you come to destroy us with your power, Lord? Have you come to destroy my life? Have you come to take away the things that I like? Have you come to take away my things that I'm kind of, if I'm honest, I'm addicted to? Have you come to destroy me with your power? But that's not the authority. He comes as the author of life. That's where his authority comes from. He comes in gentleness. He comes in humility. He doesn't come with power in the way that we think of it. He comes as the author. And the challenge for us then, I think in conclusion, is you and I, how do we speak with authority? How do we are invited to share in the authority of Christ. Right? We are invited, as that Polish nun took advantage of. She spoke with the authority of Christ. Why? Because she allowed Christ to speak within her. Right? Because she was so formed and she knows Christ and she is connected to Christ in daily prayer, and her life has continued to, I'm sure, be centered. Any time that Christ is speaking in us, when we speak with that, we are speaking with the authority of Christ. Anytime we give life, anytime we seek to breathe life into a situation where there's death, where there's pain, where there's suffering, anytime we're doing that, that's the authority. You and I can speak with that authority. The authority of Christ. Right? I think that's the challenge for us today, to think about that. Do we fear the authority of Christ? Do we think that it's about power, that He's coming to destroy us? Hopefully, no. And then the second piece of that, can you and I learn, can we begin to speak more and more with the authority of Christ? Not making it about power. It's never about power. It's not about who's ordained, or who wears what hat, or who's the Pope, or any of those kinds of things. That's not what authority is in the church. Authority is the people who speak life as Christ does, who speak as the author of the story does. We pray to be in a relationship with Christ enough to be able to hear what it is that He says, and then have the courage to go out and speak with that same authority.